Welcome to Asian Music Idol, your ultimate backstage pass to the hottest stars and stories in Asian pop.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're going to really get into something quite fundamental. It's all about how brands try to connect with you, especially when the market is just, well, saturated with information. We've got some really interesting sources here, looking specifically at a campaign in China by Chunjin Yogurt. It features the celebrity Wang Yibo.
Yeah, it's a fascinating case study, actually, because it zeroes in on a real headache for the food industry right now. Our sources talk about this thing they call component involution, this overload of ingredient lists, health claims.
Right. And that feeds into consumer health anxiety. Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone's comparing labels, looking for low-fat this, high-protein that, probiotics.
So amidst all that noise,
Yeah.
how does a brand make space for something as basic, as simple as just tasting good? How do you highlight deliciousness?
And that's the million-dollar question the sources tackle. They basically argue that, okay, ingredients and health benefits matter, but what people really fundamentally want from food, the lasting thing, is a pleasurable experience.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It sounds like it ties straight into Maslow's hierarchy, maybe.
It does, yeah. The sources bring up Maslow directly. They're saying all that functional stuff, the health value, it's ultimately serving that higher need for enjoyment, for satisfaction.
The simple joy of something tasting delicious.
Precisely. And that core idea seems to be what sparked Shenzhen's whole approach. They decided, okay, let's make delicious the main strategy.
Okay, I get the strategy, but how do you actually do that? Taste is so subjective, so internal. How do you translate that into a message that, cuts through?
That's the creative leap, isn't it? And the sources really point to this one specific piece, a very fantasy-like TV commercial with Wang Yibo.
Fantasy-like? How so?
Well, it's described as super visual, almost like stepping into Willy Wonka's factory, dreamlike, a real visual feast.
Right, so the idea was, what, like a visual revolution of taste, making something you can almost see.
Exactly. Make deliciousness visible, tangible, imaginable. Instead of just telling you it's delicious, they wanted to show you what deliciousness feels like, speaking a language that hits you directly, perceptually.
Interesting. Okay, let's break down some of the visuals they used. The sources mentioned a yogurt fountain.
Yes, the yogurt fountain. It's a brilliant example. I mean, how do you show silky smooth without someone actually tasting it?
Yeah.
They visualize it. They turn that texture into this image of flowing yogurt. The sources call it using the synesthesia effect that's seen in the original.
Synesthesia, like mixing the senses.
Kind of. You see the smooth flow, and your brain interprets that visually as a smooth feeling, a smooth taste. You're sort of tasting with your eyes first.
Huh. That's clever. Bypassing the rational brain almost. What about the food stuff? The fruit secret realm. Giant fruits, tunnels. Sounds pretty out there.
It is. And that's where they lean hard into pure visual narrative. You see Wang Yibo interacting with these huge, vibrant fruits, almost like an adventure. And the sources note there's no traditional voiceover explaining things. It's all visual montage, like a movie clip.
Aiming to make you hungry just by watching.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Making you want to swallow just based on the visual appeal and the sort of implied sensory overload.
Oh, okay. And there was a magic workshop, too, taking the, industrial process and making it fun.
Exactly. Transforming how the yogurt is actually made, blending the milk, the fruit, into this magical journey on the tip of the tongue. It takes it out of the factory and puts it into this enchanting space, directly linking the creation to the deliciousness.
So visually, they've hit taste, texture, even the process. Made it all seem appealing.
Yeah, they really covered the bases visually.
But the sources suggest there's more going on than just pretty pictures. Like there's a hidden structure, a narrative layer.
There is. And this is where they bring back those human needs, connecting it again, subtly, to Maslow. The commercial apparently unfolds in 3 stages, 3 scenes. The first is like a private moment. Someone eating alone, the term used is a coup.
Ah, okay. So that's tapping into, what, self-satisfaction, comfort food moments, that personal treat.
Exactly that. Basic emotional comfort, self-care almost. Then the scene shifts. You move to the adventure part, the fruit realm. That's the exploration thrill, or...
Which appeals to our desire for novelty, freshness, discovery, trying something new and exciting.
Right. And then the third layer, the final scene, is a social one. It's described as everyone having fun, or a gathering of friends.
Okay, so hitting the need for belonging, social connection, sharing the experience.
Precisely. So by showing the yogurt in these different contexts, enjoying it alone, exploring with it, sharing it with friends, they elevate it. It's not just a drink anymore. It gets linked to these different emotional states, these different social situations.
Giving it that social currency, the sources mention izersa, makes it something you want to share or use to mark a moment, turning it into a, what was the phrase, paced weapon against plain life.
That's the one. It moves way beyond just function. It becomes emotionally and socially relevant.
Okay, so they've built this visually rich story, layered it with emotional needs. But how do they make it stick? How do you make sure people actually remember this feeling, this fantasy?
Yeah, good question. This is where the psychology really kicks in. The sources say the goal wasn't just to show something nice, but to embed this whole sensory adventure as a happiness symbol, a Kate Indius in your memory.
Shifting away from rational arguments then. Less, here's why it's good for you, and more.
More emotional resonance, exactly.
Yeah.
Saison is the term used. They want you to feel it, not just think about it.
And the sources talk about 2 combination punches to achieve this. Sounds intense.
Yeah, it does. Punch number 1 is about using sensory overload to basically trigger a dopamine hit. Think about those visuals again. Intense, contrasting colors, the blue and white palace against the bright fruit forest. The sources literally call it a dopamine sniper, hitting your retina.
Wow. So grabbing your attention on a really primal level with color.
Yes, and then layering it. You've got the high saturation colors, plus maybe some light, upbeat music, those smooth visuals we talked about. It creates what they call a sensory superposition effect, hitting multiple senses at once. And the psychological takeaway, that kind of multisensory input, ramps up information retention.
Which explains that audience comment, the sources included something like, "This ad makes my mouth corners go wild." It's a visceral reaction.
Absolutely. It's getting a physical response.
Yep.
That's punch 1. Sensory pleasure overload. Punch 2 involves using these really surreal elements as visual hammers.
Visual hammers.
Yeah, those unconventional, exaggerated things, the giant fruits, the magical workshop. They're deliberately strange, memorable, because they're unusual. They act as strong anchor points in your memory.
So flood the senses with pleasure signals,
Yeah.
then plant these weird, striking images in the brain to kind of hook that feeling.
That's basically the idea. And the core connection they're hammering home is simple. Delicious equals happiness. The sources argue that what you'll likely remember isn't the product specs, but the feeling the ad generated. Maybe specifically you remembered the look on Wang Yibo's face, that expression of pleasure while he's in this fantasy world. That becomes the memory hook for Qingjin.
Right. Speaking of Wang Yibo, let's talk about his role. The sources suggest it's more than just a standard celebrity endorsement. They say it shifts things from a brand solo to a symphony of thousands. What does that mean?
It's a really key point. He's not just, holding the product and smiling for the camera. He's positioned as an explorer, a guide leading you, the viewer, into this delicious fantasy world. And this connects directly to what the sources call a co-creation strategy. This seems especially tuned for younger audiences like Gen Z.
Co-creation. How's that different from the old model? Brand pays a star, star appears. Fans hopefully buy the product.
It really breaks that linear top-down approach. It's designed to be more interactive, more collaborative. A big piece of it is aligning the campaign persona with the celebrity's actual image. So Wang Yibo is the delicious explorer. And the sources point out this fits well with his known interests like skateboarding, motorsports, things where he's seen as exploring skills or limits.
So it feels authentic to his fans. Like, oh, this fits with the Wang Yibo we know.
Exactly. The sources mention fans saying things like, he's like the real him, which builds trust. It doesn't feel like just a paid gig.
Okay, so authenticity is one part. What else makes it co-creation?
The other key part is how the campaign's assets, the visuals, the scenes like the castles, the fruit tunnels, were designed from the start to be reusable. They're described as a second creation material library. Basically, a toolkit for fans.
A toolkit for what?
For fans to create their own content. Fan edits, videos, memes, using the cool visuals from the ad. The scenes are made to be visually interesting and almost gamified, making it easy and fun for fans to play with them.
Got it. So the brand provides the building blocks, and the fans run with it, creating user-generated content.
Precisely. And when that happens, this fan content starts popping up everywhere online, screening everything, as the sources put it.
Sure.
It helps the campaign break the circle, spreading beyond just the dedicated fan base into the wider social conversation.
And why do fans do this? Is it just loyalty, or the sources seem to suggest something deeper?
Yeah, they argue it's often about identity expression. When a fan makes a cool video using the campaign visuals featuring Wang Yibo, it's not just about the brand or the star. It's partly about saying something about themselves, associating themselves with the creativity, the fun, the adventurous spirit of the campaign. The sources put it quite powerfully. It's like the fan is saying, I want to be as interesting and cool as Wang Yibo.
Wow. Okay, so the campaign becomes a platform for fans to express their own identity and aspirations.
Okay.
That's quite a different level of engagement.
It really is.
Okay, let's try and pull this all together then. Based on everything we've discussed with the sources, what's the main strategic takeaway here? What's the big shift this campaign represents?
I think it fundamentally boils down to a shift in perception and focus. They strategically move the conversation away from just saying the yogurt is delicious, the basic meaning of haru, and towards making the whole experience around the brand feel fun.
From taste to fun.
Yeah. And they achieve that through a combination of things we've talked about, translating taste into those powerful visual symbols, creating strong, happy memories using sensory overload and those psychological hammers, and then, crucially, activating the audience through this co-creation strategy.
So it becomes less about the inherent quality of the yogurt itself, though, that has to be there, and more about the feeling, the memory, the shared experience the brand facilitates.
That's exactly the conclusion the sources draw. They say product quality is just the entry ticket. You need it to even be in the game. But the real differentiator, the ace card or winning hand A, is brand perception, how people feel about you, how they connect with you.
And the way to build that perception, especially with younger consumers, is through this kind of creative, emotional, participatory approach.
Seems to be the argument. By speaking their language visually, emotionally, interactively, the brand isn't just aiming for sales figures, but for winning their hearts and minds, their genuine support.
Well, that was quite the journey, digging into how this one brand took something seemingly simple like yogurt and built this whole multi-layered experience around it.
Yeah, it really highlights how creativity, psychology, and community can come together, translating something abstract like delicious into something people can see, feel, remember, and even play with.
It definitely makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
When you consider the products you use or the media you consume, how much of your connection is really down to the features, the specs, the objective facts, and how much is actually shaped by the feeling it gives you, the overall experience, or maybe that sense of connection or belonging that the brand or the content manages to create around itself?
It's a great question.
Yeah, how else might these sensory adventures or visual hammers be working on us, influencing our choices in ways we don't even fully realize?
Something to chew on, for sure.
Thanks for watching Asian Music Idol. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated with the hottest buzz in Asian pop culture.